also in business. There's going to be challenges and things that you can't control. And the way that we handle and tackle those, with the athletic mindset again, and that's something that drives us all the time with, doing as good as you can, progressing, learning your lessons. When you fail, learning a lesson from it and getting better and better and better. We're all in. We don't dip our toe in anything. And so when Pierce was born with Down syndrome, it was, again, all in. We're like, hell yeah, let's do this thing.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and you're listening and watching the Rhymes with Odd podcast. Today, we have another amazing guest. We've got Tyler Robinson in the house. Tyler, what's going on?
How's it going?
Tyler is the co-owner of Krave Gym. We're going to talk about all things fitness, business, family, a bunch of fun things today on the docket. So thanks for coming on the show, man.
Of course. Yeah, I'm excited.
Very cool. So to kind of get people up to speed with who you are, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So obviously own Krave Gym. I own it with my wife. And so that's another dynamic that we'll definitely jump into here as well. But basically, grew up, born in Elkhorn, Nebraska, or born in Kearney, Nebraska, moved to Elkhorn when we were super young. So grew up in Omaha suburbs. From there, went to University of South Dakota in Vermillion, South Dakota, so not too far north up there, where I met my wife, and ultimately kind of the birthplace of Crave. We both played sports, so I grew up playing football in high school, played 4 sports, ended up going to college playing football. She played volleyball in college, and so we met in college. When we were done, we got our master's there as well. So then when we were done playing, I was a strength and conditioning coach for a while there while I was getting my master's, which ultimately, interestingly enough, was an interim head spot with another guy. So,
oh, wow.
So it kind of got thrown into the coaching role at a very young age. Realized that was great, but there was a ceiling for that level. And so my wife, on the other hand, she was the coordinator at the wellness center. So she was a health and fitness coordinator. And so when we got done with coaching and we were ready to move out of Vermillion, which is a tiny town, awesome for going to college, but great parties, all that kind of stuff. The college really runs the town. Yeah. But from there, growing a career, we were looking for something else. So sure. We basically we teamed with Tiger Rock Martial Arts at the very beginning, and so in that they're a martial arts company that has 180, I think, locations at the time, nationwide. And so when they approached us to be kind of this face of the strength and conditioning program, we started designing strength and conditioning to put into Taekwondo studios. So that's kind of the brick and mortar, all of that kind of stuff is where we kind of started there.
Did the Taekwondo stuff, did they have strength equipment or was it more body weight?
They didn't. So at the time, it was mostly body weight. We still had the same 4 elements, which we'll go over when we dive deeper into Crave, but the equipment was limited to what you would have: heavy bags, which was like water heavy bags or whatever. Then you would have bands and just stuff that were ladders, hurdles. The agility was easy, but the strength element was a challenge, right? And the goal with that was ultimately to have young adults, 25 to 35-year-old athletes come in and eventually then transition, feel comfortable, and then jump into Taekwondo. Well, we were in more than half the locations, close to 100 locations, and in those schools, we had a bunch of success with the program. A bunch of people came in. Not a lot of people transferred and did adult Taekwondo. And so the point of the program was in that. And so we decided, okay, this has to live on its own. There's success there, but let's build a gym around this concept without being inside of a Tiger Rock. And so then we basically decided at that time to look for where would be the best place to, and we knew we wanted to franchise, or we have kind of a faux franchise, but we knew we wanted to expand
multiple locations, not just one gym.
Right.
Yep.
So day one, we went in with that mindset and we thought, okay, well, where's the best place to start a gym? We looked in Omaha, Kansas City, Des Moines, obviously, and then Colorado, Westminster, Thornton area. And we were kind of bouncing around all of that. We're all big Midwest built type of company, you know, and so we wanted to stay in the Midwest and build it in the Midwest. And we were actually packed up, ready, driving to Colorado. And in passing, we were like, well, let's give one more shot. Let's put another eye on Des Moines. Went to Des Moines, did another tour of real estate and all that kind of stuff. And we were like, okay, we just didn't leave. So we got an apartment and settled up. So that was the first location in West Des Moines. That was 2014 now. So going on 10 years here in it'll be April of next year will be 10 years. So yeah, so then, you know, came here, started, that was our baby for about 5 years and then, or about 4 years. And then we started our family and now we have 3 little ones. So we have Pierce is our oldest. He is 7. Ivy is 5, and then Porter, our youngest, is 2.5. So
very cool. And what's the boy, girls, all boys, all girls?
Boy, girl, boy.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah,
it's like every other
exactly. Yep. So we had the gym was kind of our first baby, and then started our family and stayed in the West Des Moines area. And since then, we opened up a Waukee location, and then we got a couple locations right now in this past year that we've started on, and hopefully here in the next month we'll have 4 total, and then looking to expand next year in a big way. So
that's really cool. Because how long so you said you started in 2014?
2014. Yep.
So you started then until now. How long did you have just the one location before you knew it was time to start branching to other places?
Right about 5 years. So so we kind of started our family and the second location at the same time. So my wife and I, Amber, you know, her and I are both like all in for things, and oftentimes without like, we don't dip a toe in at all. And so
cannonballs only.
Yeah, exactly. So we're diving into things, and in doing that, we were like, okay, well, yeah, time to expand. We wanted to expand, and we had different opportunities that first 5 years. Nothing really went through. I think it was for the best for us because the brand in that first 5 years really solidified. We had a super tight package by the time that we expanded. And so the second location our Waukee location is exactly what we wanted the model to be. Everything's the same, but like as far as training and all of that goes, but just little things like custom millwork and lockers and all of that kind of stuff that we knew the direction that we wanted to go. We knew like finalized. If you look into like brick and mortar stuff, just finalizing the trade dress, finalizing all that kind of stuff, the program took us. The concept and the program kind of took us that first 2 or 3 years to really lock down. And then it took us about like a year and a half to really then take the program itself that can be done anywhere and make it a Crave branded program, right? And so then by the time that we expanded, then that's what we wanted to make sure we were doing is that Crave branded that program where that package is everything. So that not only we can open up another location and look and feel exactly like location number 2, Waukee. West Des Moines just looks a little bit different. It feels a little bit different. But we're kind of backtracking now and reverting that to more of our solidified model. But in doing that, everything in this third and fourth location look and feel the exact same as our second location. So that took us that little first time to kind of that first 5 years or whatever to really solidify where we wanted to be as a brand. And in doing so, you know, expanding too early, I think would have been a regret for us, where we would have, you know, opened a second one that was maybe 3/4 of the way there, and then the third one maybe being 100% there. I think that would have been a mistake. And so luckily those opportunities of growth before kind of stalled and didn't work out. And then growing when we needed to was really the key, I think, for us moving forward.
And it's interesting to hear because you hear so many people that are growing for growth's sake, but it sounds like
Sure.
you were really meticulous about the details, but not just the look and feel, but the consistency of product and service, regardless of what location you go to. Because you see so many gyms that are like, the sign on the front says, this brand, but you go in and it's not the same feeling.
Sure.
Because I know, especially I'm really involved in the fitness space, and the same thing happened with like larger chains that get bought up by other companies. Like all the Aspens in Des Moines got purchased by
Genesis.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you have 7 or 8 locations in the metro that all feel the same, besides just the branding? So I think that's really cool. Since I do a lot of shooting in the fitness space, I wanted to ask you, what's the differentiator for you guys? Are you guys a high value, low cost? Are you more boutique gym? Like, how do you guys kind of compare to other fitness options in the market in the Des Moines area?
Yeah. So we're a boutique gym, but Krave Gym is a coach-led science-backed strength and conditioning program. So ex-athletes come, we call everybody athletes. So athletes come to train with their team for the sport of life. And that's kind of our elevator pitch. That's who we are overall. But the real reason that we are that is because did you play sports growing up?
I did. I did 4 sports up until junior year, and then or 3 sports, I should say, in high school. So
awesome.
Football, basketball, and then baseball, and then senior year I didn't play basketball, and then I ran track instead.
Cool. So someone like you went through probably their entire life before you were done with high school, playing sports, learning lessons from sports, having that training, and all of that physical activity was typically for that sport, right? Then for us, the demographic that's kind of forgotten in the fitness industry is that ex-athlete, right? So the athlete that then, that's their identity. The quote unquote jock that, that then goes on past sports. And it's like, okay, well, all these lessons I learned in sports, all of these things that I do because of sports, the physical training that I do with sports, the mental, pushing through challenges, all of that kind of stuff that makes me an athlete, that stuff just doesn't go away the day that you're done playing baseball, right? And so when that was our pinpoint demographic, right? Because when I got done playing football, I was like, okay, so now I don't have a team. Now I don't have, a sport. Like, who am I? And I think a lot of people go through that same exact thing. And then when that happens, that's when we step in and we're like, okay, you graduated from your sport, but you're still an athlete. And here's how we challenge you, still training for the sport of life now. And so, not only physically, training like we always did in sports. So that's kind of where my strength and conditioning background came from, and training in a periodized manner, and kind of going back to what you said about a lot of different gyms feeling different. Most gyms training wise is just, okay, that trainer maybe they're really good at programming, but that trainer is just programming every single program, whether they program a week in advance or they do it that day. What happens when that trainer leaves, if they're good, right? Or they might have 5 different people that are programming for that single day, and now those 5 don't match up. And so you don't know if you're getting what you need out of that program. And so the standard in strength and conditioning is periodization. And what that means is you're basically planning not in a week in advance, but you're planning microcycles, macrocycles, all the way through an entire year of training in different seasons in sports. And that's really a big differentiator for Crave, is we have 6 different seasons inside of our training through the entire year. So today, I know exactly what everybody will be doing in the next year at Krave Gym in 2024 November. And so that's super important, because now we know that everything is getting accomplished that needs to get accomplished. We're not dropping the ball on some Thursday in February because Sally couldn't come and program the day, right? And so we know every single thing that they need to do. And it eliminates the overtraining factor that happens all the time. It eliminates a lot of things like the kind of throw shit at the wall and hope something sticks. Right. So when you're doing that, the goal of a lot of gyms in our space is just work out as hard as we can every day. make sure that we're sweating, make sure we're doing out of breath and just, crushing a bunch of weights. When you're doing that, you're going to get some results, especially if you're deconditioned for 10 years. Mm-hmm. The problem though comes when you're overtraining because everybody on the coaching staff likes to squat. So you're squatting every single day or a variation that doesn't make sense because of yesterday's workout or because of tomorrow's workout, right?
You did super heavy legs yesterday, and now we're going to do lunges till failure, and you're like, my legs aren't even healed from yesterday.
Right, yeah. And it's overlooked in recovery. And that's kind of the first rule of a strength and conditioning coach is my athletes have to play. And so I can't have them injured. But my second goal is they have to play at their max. So I have to make them the best athletes possible, right? And so that's what we do at Crave is we're strength and conditioning coaches with a strength and conditioning program to maximize results, but minimize injury so that you can perform now in the sport of life. So that's really kind of the big differentiator from us is there's really not anybody out there training athletes that aren't currently athletes, right?
Sure.
And it's so important not only physically, but like if I'm training and I'm physically pushing myself to the limit, all of this stuff, you also learn in sports, you learn how to fail, you learn how to grow and progress and continue to push as hard as you can, and you see the results, right? That's physical with us, but then it's also mental. So we take it to the job, right? So in sports, you've learned how to fail and you say, okay, I failed and I make an adjustment. And now that adjustment makes me successful at whatever the next thing is. That goes into your career, that goes into your family. Mm-hmm. As a parent, I fail all the time. And as soon as I do, I would go, oh, I made that mistake. Okay, cool. I know how to handle it the next time. And then the next time comes up and then that situation I can win, right? And so that's all of that is that athletic mindset. And that's really what we're training, both the physical and the mental and just training for life, right?
When I think about like a classic commercial gym where you come in and it's like you come in when you decide, you program your own thing, there's a bunch of equipment, figure it out. That also compared to other boutique options where like a Pilates or fitness studio or a yoga studio where you go in and there's a class format, but if you take the same class every day, it's the same routine, the same thing. You kind of get burnt a little bit more.
Right.
Where I think it's interesting in a structure like yours or even a CrossFit gym or something comparative where there's programmed for an adult class, you come in and it's done for you. Just show up, get it done. But I think there's something to speak for that structure where life's going to throw stuff at you every day. You might have to run sprints today. You might have to do push-ups till you can't feel your chest anymore. Like there's going to be challenges that you can't cherry pick. I don't like this workout, so I'm not going to go. Right. It's like, no, just show up every day and do the work and you'll get better. I think that's a cool sentiment to taking those skills and transferring them to other parts of your life.
I think there's such a value to the product where you show up and you don't have to think about anything, right? So the program's done for you. All you have to do is get to the gym. And 90% of the time, that's the hardest part, right? And so if you have to get to the gym and now you have all of these other things in your way, like I have to think about what I'm going to do today, I have to research what I'm going to do today, or I have to pay someone to program on top of my gym membership and all this other stuff, that doesn't make any sense, right? The other thing that's super valuable, so we train 3 days a week in our team training sessions. The team sessions, just like in a college setting where you're training for sports, you're not going to train 100% lifting as heavy as you can and driving, whatever the goal is for that microcycle. You're not going to be doing that 5, 6, 7 days a week because you have to recover. And so we have that in place. And because of that, and because of the structure, the throwing shit at the wall theory only works if you train 6 days, 7 days a week because you got to make sure that you hit everything.
Yeah.
Where we can train less time, making more time for other stuff. But then we have 24/7 access too. So you have that, what we call our active rest days. And those active rest days can be a yoga where you're doing the same, stretching or something, whatever you have to work on, right? Or it can be specific to goal-oriented stuff. So a lot of our athletes will run marathons, and so they'll do 3 team training sessions. And just like in strength and conditioning, our goal is to make you the best athlete possible. So if you want to be a marathon athlete, you do the team training sessions. That's going to help your marathon, but that's not ultimately going to help you run hundreds of miles, right? So on your active rest days, you can hit your mile training, and we help with programming like marathons or OCR, obstacle course races, and different things that are different goals, powerlifting, all of those different things. But ultimately, the fundamental side of things, just like if I'm a football player, I'm training with my strength and conditioning coach 3, maybe 4 times a week in college, and then I'm practicing on the other days. I'm practicing skill to make me a better football player on the other days. I'm training with my team for strength and conditioning to make me the best athlete that I can be, bigger, stronger, faster, leaner, all of the things that you're looking for when you're looking for performance. But that doesn't make me a better football player. The practice and the skill work makes me a better football player. So that's kind of the umbrella of goals. Cool. And then we have the other part that we do is we have those challenges. So a way to kind of we have specific challenges for each season. And so inside every one of each of the 6 seasons that year is a specific challenge that has to do with that specific goal of that season, right? So we're currently in the strength season for the rest of the year. And so we have sub maxes right now. So you're seeing how much can I squat, how much can I dead, how much can I bench press, and doing it 3 to 5 reps again to kind of eliminate that injury factor. But then you're doing those on a beginning, middle, and end of the season type of basis. And those challenges then correlate with the season and correlate with kind of competition and stuff too. So you come in like agility season next season starting in January. We have it's called the rabbit challenge, which is basically a jumping hurdle box jump challenge. And so every single year you have the same one at the beginning of that season, make a move season. If that season's in the year, then that season you'll have that rabbit challenge beginning, middle, and end of that. So you can compare inside of that season how much better you got at agility, but then also you can compare it to the previous years too. And so you can continue to see growth every single year in those challenges. So that's kind of cool, not to mention not only competing against yourself, but then you have a top 10 board. You have some different things as far as challenges. Winning those challenges is a big thing too. And so that kind of brings that competitiveness out of athletes as well, which is fun.
Sure. And kind of keeping people competitive and wanting to come in and kind of compete with their friends, but also themselves. That's always fun.
Definitely, yeah.
As fitness kind of goes into your business life, it's interesting to see how do you keep fitness a priority for your own personal life? Because I know I always think of the classic, like somebody started a gym because they love working out, they love the fitness world, and then you get so drowned in the fitness stuff that you stop taking care of yourself.
Sure,
so how do you prioritize fitness for yourself and for your family as you continue to build the business out?
Sure. For me, it's all about consistency. And so as much work as we were able to put into our own training when we were playing sports growing up and when we only had one location, that really pays dividends. So as long as you stay consistent forever, you don't have to kill yourself on a daily basis, right? So there's still that recovery. So, 3 days a week, I'm training really hard. If I'm doing depending on the season, I'll jump in and do a team session, or I'll just do a hard lift or something that for that day, 3 days a week. And then I have 3 days where I'm 20, 25 minutes of a little bit of lift cardio, some different stuff that is just getting me to my goal of staying lean, staying athletic, being able to move with the kids. And so that's kind of my thing. But consistency, basically doing it every morning is the challenge, right? So when the alarm clock wakes me up at 5:30, it's looking at my phone and going, okay, so I'm going to get up. I got to work. I got to eat, work out, and then get to my day. And I'd like to get to my day at 8 o'clock. That means I have to go, okay, that means I got to go now, right? And I have the option to say, it's a rest day, I'm not going to do this. And so sometimes that comes up too, but it's that consistency of at least 3 days a week, typically 4 or 5 is what I'm doing nowadays, which that drastically is different than how I used to train. I did bodybuilding for a long time after I played football. And then before that, I was doing strength and conditioning, nonstop. So it was it was the transition to bodybuilding was 7 days a week, but it was very much less work in the gym and more work on diet, which is a completely missed thing oftentimes in strength and conditioning. And so that was something that when I was coaching at South Dakota, that was one thing that we tried to really make sure that we were working on nutrition, because it's a smaller school. They have like I don't even yoke cash or whatever, right? So they're going to the concession stand just like all the other kids, and the only problem is they're crushing physical workouts, and so they need a little bit more. So pushing for supplements, pushing for added food and added things that a lot of those kids had, because a lot of those kids they don't value that either, and so they'll by mid-semester they'd be out of money, and so well, I don't have anything to eat. Well, you're going to have to eat if you're going to train and get the results, right?
Looks like tuna sandwiches and peanut butter. That's all you get because that's all you can afford,
Exactly. And then being strategic about your nutrition, making sure that the performance nutrition was there. That really then kind of jumped into my personal goals with bodybuilding, and and that's the same exact thing, just taken to the extreme to get as lean as possible to jump on stage. I ended up getting my natural pro card in like 2013, 14, 15, somewhere in there.
Cool.
Competed
Congrats.
a couple times. Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's cool and it's exciting, but it's one of those things that it's like I competed then again as a pro in 2018 or 2016 when my son was born, and then 2018 when my daughter was born. And both of those years, the priorities shifted so much that it was like, the reward at the end of the road for bodybuilding for me just wasn't there. And that's kind of when we shifted. Family and business is kind of the whole thing, and then just consistency on the fitness side of things when it comes to my training. And I don't have any crazy goals right now. And so for me, being an athlete, keeping up with the kids, being able to do, like right now we're doing construction stuff on the gym. We're installing floors and doing different things. And to be able to do that kind of stuff is ultimately my main goal. And then, being able to think and perform at a high capacity is all about physical first. And then, that comes in. If you physically can't get to where you are not where you want to be, it affects everything else in life. And so that's kind of where my goals start and end, right? So
I totally connect with that too, because I also competed in a natural bodybuilding show. I did men's physique in 2017 in St. Louis, and it was a piss-tested place because I'd been to plenty of the pro level shows,
NPC stuff, or IFBB,
and the guys just shooting so much gear and trend and all this, and I'm like, the goal for me is health. It's not look a certain way, because it's like, yes, you can look the most insane you've ever looked, but internally your organs are like, please, like, save me, it's that type of thing. So I totally connect with that. But also, I did my show in 2017. We didn't start having kids until a couple years ago. So I couldn't imagine like training for a show, because what people don't realize about bodybuilding, to your point, 90% of the work is in the kitchen, and it's like eating every 3 hours and a gallon of water a day. And I can imagine like your kid's birthday party, can't even have a piece of cake. Yeah. And they're like, Daddy, have a piece of cake. You're like, no, Daddy's got to eat this rice cake because I got to compete in 2 weeks or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing that that's what it takes. And like I said, that's the extreme side of it. And if I'm on the off, when I was competing, when I'm on the off season, eat, party, do all the stuff that ultimately I shouldn't have been doing, because that off season should be building season. But that's when you relax and you do everything else. But then when you get closer to competitions, then it's super selfish. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I have to be on this schedule. I have to do these things eat a separate dinner from my family and all that kind of stuff. So when it got to that point, I was like, actually it was very interesting, because in 2016 and 18, I qualified for the Natural Olympia, which is a kind of the end of the year big qualifying show in one of the natural organizations. And so in that, I qualified, and that was in November. I qualified in in September, I think. basically you just have to get first or second in one of the big shows or whatever, or whatever qualifying shows. So when I did that, it was all cool, and I was 6 months into preps and stuff, and then you get and my son was born 2016. My son, I think it was like the show was on the 19th, and he ended up being born on the 27th, and so it's like I didn't go to Vegas to do the show. So it was like I ended the season because and just kind of ended it. And
so you didn't compete at the Olympia.
Yeah, okay. Because my son, I wasn't going to have my pregnant wife in, you know what I mean? So then that really kind of snaps the priorities into perspective. And I would hope that most people wouldn't be like, okay, bye, babe. I'm gonna go to Vegas for 2 days and
FaceTime you in the delivery room.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? That just doesn't. That wouldn't even cross my mind. So then, that was one of the selfish things that I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. And then same exact thing happened in 2018 with my daughter, except she was born. We were in the hospital. She was born on the 8th, and I think the show was on the 11th. And so we were still in the hospital, and I was like, all right, well, that was the last time I competed, that was the last season I competed. But that was like the ending of both of those were when my 2 kids were born, and I was like, that's probably a sign for me to hang it up. Sure. I don't need to compete in that, and it didn't bother. The reason why I really haven't competed since then probably is because it didn't bother me. And so if it didn't bother me, what am I doing? What am I taking away from my family and experiences and all that kind of stuff for?
Well, and as you're, how did that feeling come to you when you're training for months and months for this big event and then you don't do the event? Like, it'd be like Michael Phelps training for a year for the Olympics and then he just doesn't perform. Like, how did that come across in your psyche on it? Did you feel like it was a waste of time? Did you still get value from it?
I took a bunch of pictures. Right.
Nice.
So, I mean, that's like one thing.
You made your own calendar for next year.
Exactly. But it was like, I didn't care that much. And that's really kind of what snapped into my head is like, if I don't care that much about the sport or me looking this good or me competing at this level, then what am I doing? There are people that do really give a shit and care a ton about this. And I'm not one of those people. And I know that I'm not one of those people because my kid's being born, I'm not even thinking about the competition that I've been training 6 months for. So what does that tell me? I don't really care that much about it, right? So it was almost a goal-oriented purpose for training because when I got out of sports, and just like anybody else's identity that is an athlete, and that's ultimately what kind of framed Crave, is you have this identity. So like I was done playing in 2010. And so I started competing in like 2011, 2012. That identity shift was what created bodybuilding, filled that identity shift. That was my sport. Yeah. And so in creating Crave, it was how do we create that sport? How do we create that team? How do we create that thing that fills the identity void of someone that's done with sports? Because not everyone wants to bodybuild. And so many people are searching for what that is. And if we can be an outlet for that, then that's kind of the ultimate goal for Crave. And so that was just my outlet for being done with sports and needing an identity, really. Okay, now I was a football player. I was a strength and conditioning coach. I am still a strength and conditioning coach, but I'm also a bodybuilder. You know what I mean? And so for me, I think that for those 4 or 5 years when I started until I got my pro card, like that was like a big deal for me, is I got to get that pro card. And so I competed 2011, I think was my first show. And I competed every year until 2014. So I competed 4 years in a row and until I got my pro card. And then 14, 16, 18, when I was a pro, I found out I didn't care that much about it. You know what I mean? And so then also Crave kind of took that identity, and I wanted to train a little bit different. Crave training was, the team sessions were perfect for when I was cutting, right? If it's agility season, but then it's strength season and it didn't align with my goals. And so at that time I kind of picked, I was like, well, I can just do what the goals of Crave is. and get in the best shape of my life, go agility is my goal. Agility is my goal for that season. Strength is my goal the next season. Shift my goals to strength then, you know? So then my identity was more filled with training for Crave, or training in the team sessions and this along with the goals of Crave and the seasons. And then, but that wouldn't align with bodybuilding necessarily.
Right.
So that's when I kind of that's another reason I think kind of gave that up and
hang it up. And
yep, exactly.
Yeah. Cause I totally connect with this because to your point, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, went to college. I was thinking about playing baseball, didn't play. And then I was in that point where I'm like, well, now what? So then I was really just in the gym like 6-7 days a week, training really hard, doing like bodybuilding-esque stuff, but I wasn't like training for a bodybuilding show. Right. And then 2017, I actually did it because someone said, what's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life? And I didn't have an answer for him. I'm like,
sure.
I don't know. And then that has really made me think, I'm like, God, I should do something like challenging.
Right.
So then I signed up for an NPC show in St. Louis. So I did that. And then to your point, yeah, it's like finding the next thing and the next thing. So I was in commercial gyms for probably 6-7 years, doing my own programming.
Sure.
And then 2 years ago, made the jump to CrossFit because I was like looking for that team atmosphere. Sure. And there was one near where I was at. So I've been doing that for 2 years. Now I'm taking a break from CrossFit, going back to doing my own thing because we have a baby on the way. So I know it's whenever I can get it in type thing.
By the way.
Thank you. Yeah. So just again, it's like you said, there's seasons in life you can kind of flow like what aligns with your goals, but your lifestyle, because it has to be able to be done, you know?
Right.
Bodybuilding is a 24/7 sport. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that. It's the dieting, the restrictions and stuff. And I learned a lot about myself in that process because I never had a cheat meal, never had alcohol, no sugar. When you're on the boat with your family and you can't have a beer, that sucks, man. Yep. I have so much bow down to those people that do that 24/7 because like it's so restrictive. You know, you got to have the ebb and flow in your life and everything, which is a huge part of it.
Right.
I know we've been kind of touching in on family a little bit. I wanted to kind of shift the focus away and kind of talk about you as a family man because it sounds like that's a big part of your identity now as you're expanding the business and you're a father and a husband and stuff like that. So you mentioned you have 3 kids. What's been the biggest lesson you've learned as being a parent that you've helped apply to the business? You mentioned failure, learning from like screwing up and learning from it. What are some lessons you've learned from being a parent? Yeah.
So kind of to shift. So my oldest was born with Down syndrome. So that's been a big part of us and my wife and I as parents, right? That we weren't expecting. But he has been a blessing from day one. And I think we actually did a video for Gigi's, and I had mentioned this in that video, but the biggest lesson that I learned that now like is the reason I parent, like the way that we parent is both of us being athletes, both of us, you know, owning the gym, all about being an athlete, right? So I go into the delivery room, we're thinking, okay, we're having a healthy boy. Awesome. He's going to be our quarterback. I played quarterback. He's going to be our little football player, whatever, blah, 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 blah. So then the second that he's born, someone comes in and says, he has Down syndrome. And I was like, no, he doesn't. Don't worry. There's just blah, 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 blah. And she said she knew like the moment that she saw him.
The nurse did. The nurse said that.
Amber, my wife.
Oh, your wife said that.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And so for me, I was for the first like 5-10 minutes, I was like, no, there's, kids with Down syndrome have this, he doesn't have this. Kids with Down syndrome have this, he doesn't. And so like there were so many different signs that were like pretty interesting. But once then you're like, oh yeah, he does. You're right. So then one of the biggest things I learned from that was a shift that I think most parents go through sometime, right? So most parents probably, especially if coming from the athlete side of things, if you realize that your kids aren't athletes, at some point you realize that if you're like living vicariously through your kid in sports and athletics, right? And you realize that, okay, that's not their path. They might be 12 years old, they might be whatever. For us, it was a mindset shift like day one, which kind of a really cool, kind of enlightening scenario for me because I was like, okay, well, what is he going to love to do? And whatever he's going to love to do, we're going to help him and guide him in whatever way we can. but we're not going to force him in a direction that we might have done if he was born a typical kid. And so that was a super interesting thing for us as parents. And so obviously then my daughter's born 2 years later, my son born another 2 years later. And so that kind of the main lesson that we learned from Pierce with his Down syndrome diagnosis is like, like they're going to be themselves, and they're not going to be your representation of those kids. They're not
kids, you, right?
They're not you, right? Yeah. And so that for, I think for so many parents, it's like that realization it better come at some point, right?
But you go to these little league tournaments and you'll see the parents that are like, I could have been to the state championship when I was your age, I totally see that.
And so like for us to have that, right away was really cool, but I think there's more, and when I talk about Down syndrome to people, the blessings that the positives from Pierce being Pierce with Down syndrome far outweigh any of the negatives. But there are some challenges with it, and I think that one thing that like we take from, or many things that we take from Pierce's life, and we take into business, and we take into kind of lessons that we have learned with all the kids and everything, is there's the extra challenges and the extra things that you do. Like compare it, and I'm just kind of thinking about this now because I really haven't analyzed it like this, but think about an entrepreneur. You chose to do these things that are harder in business than a lot of people go through. And so that's kind of the same thing. We didn't choose it, but because we were blessed with it, we have his Down syndrome makes it so, he's 7 and he's not 100% verbal, right? So he knows some words and he can communicate with us, but his communication, he doesn't talk yet. And then like potty training, he's not potty trained yet at 7 years old. So those are difficulties that just come with Pierce, but that overcoming those and just continuing to try to be the best we can be for him and guide him in any way that we can, though that is also in business. There's going to be challenges and things that you can't control, and the way that we handle and tackle those, with the athletic mindset again, and that's something that drives us all the time with, doing as good as you can, progressing, learning your lessons. When you fail, learning a lesson from it and getting better and better and better. We take that from him and a lot of the challenges that we do, and then you can apply that to business. You can apply that even if you don't own your own business, you can apply that to your job, and all of that kind of stuff for me has come from like the extra lessons that we learn. Like I said, we're all in. We don't dip our toe in anything, and so when Pierce was born with Down syndrome, it was, again, all in. We're like, hell yeah, let's do this thing. Right. And so, advocating for Down syndrome, and Gigi's Playhouse is a huge place. It's basically a center for kids with Down syndrome, an achievement center. And so we do a ton of work with them. In Special Olympics, we do a ton of work with them. And so
I can see the alignment of the branding there. It's like with the business and your personal connection to it, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so it was kind of cool because then also we got inside of our brand at Crave, we have power partners. And so each season, not only do we train different, the gym looks different, the colors are different in the gym, everything's different. We also have a different organization that we work with. So we work with Special Olympics. We work with, like, next season's ARL. This season is Salvation Army. And so every season we have different causes that we try to tackle.
That's cool.
And so that was, again, I think Pierce had something to do with that, where it was like, okay, let's think outside of us. Let's advocate for something. And then in doing that, let's provide those opportunities for every one of our athletes at the gym. And it's gone over awesome. Like, people love doing the events. Habitat for Humanity, we build a house,
Oh, wow.
And so we have we have those opportunities, and we just recognize, like, not everyone is going to, want to jump on Down syndrome advocacy, right? So let's have we have 6 different seasons. Let's have 6 different organizations. Everyone can identify with one or 2, or someone just, wants to identify and take that leap to being a better person and being an impact to other people that may need more help. Then they jump in every single one, and we get a lot more done as a team at Crave than we could ever do, Amber and myself individually. And so that's been a really cool development through our brand too. So
that's really dope. Cause I know, like I just shot, this is top of my mind. Cause last week I shot with American Heart Association we were talking with a little girl that had congenital heart defect, and they found out at like the 20-week appointment. So they were trying to figure out, weed out all the other, things that it could be and diagnose it prior to birth and whatnot.
Sure.
And they were talking about that, and they said, well, this really, the American Heart Association obviously appeals to us because our daughter has a heart defect.
Right.
The average person, maybe not. Maybe their cousin had a heart attack or a stroke. Like, there's so many causes that apply to different people you feel more inclined to be involved. So I think that's really cool that you give the option to have like an array of different ones that can apply.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people, grab onto one and they absolutely love it, and they work with them like all year round. We actually had, so one of our coaches, we have Special Olympics. One of our coaches actually got a full-time job at Special Olympics, and he's still part-time with us, but he now has a full-time job at Special Olympics and does all things Special Olympics, right? And so it was really cool to see him. Maybe he doesn't even have an experience with Special Olympics, prior to coaching at Crave, to then adopting that as a part of his identity and loving the Special Olympics, and then ultimately getting a full-time job there is really cool. So I think that kind of goes with your team, right? Your team gives you the opportunity to advocate for certain things or to just help the community. And so we kind of just allow that structure. We have a lot of people that a lot of the big companies around here, the Wells Fargo, the Principal, all of those companies have okay, you get 5 days off for volunteer type of events and stuff like that. So at first, 10 years ago, we had some of our athletes coming up to us and been like, hey, do you guys have anything, what do you guys do? And this was before Pierce. What do you guys do for volunteering, or do you have any recommendations for any organizations? I have 5 days that I want to burn, that I want to go help someone. Yeah. And so in that progress, and then once Pierce was born, for sure, we were like, okay, let's give people opportunities to spend those volunteer days, and then they can do that as a team. And it's so cool to be able to, Habitat for Humanity is one that's really cool for me, because you see a physical thing from when you started to when you're done, right? So for us, last year, we put all cabinets and doors into a house. So we walked into this house that was empty, no doors, no cabinets, no nothing in the kitchen. And we walk out of there in a day, and all of the cabinets are in place. All the doors are hung, and so you see the physical, the physical thing that you actually created as a team is really cool. There's a lot of stuff that we do, raising money and doing different things, but that seems to be one of the things that you're oh, you can physically see we were at X and now we're at Y, and then we leave and we're done with something cool,
And what a way to strengthen your community, to transcend the walls of the gym and go do something that now we're not just talking about oh, that workout really was hard, wasn't it? Now it's oh, remember that house we built for that family in need? There's cool memories and things tied to, and it's like I said, it transcends the gym, which is you want to build a really good, strong boutique gym culture.
Definitely.
That's a great way to do it. So that's a really strong way.
And I mean, think about any team that you've ever been on. 90% of the conversations on my football team are not football.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's all the other stuff going on that you do as a team. And so having not only, those things with the community, you can, that's a huge point of conversation and ties our team together. But then even just going out for drinks and stuff too is a part of it too. So it's all that outside of the gym, transcending the gym, like you had said, is a huge part of what we do.
Absolutely. No, I love that. One of the things I wanted to talk about too was what was the big, we talked about you're opening your third and fourth right now, right?
Yes.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced early on to open that first location when you decided Des Moines is our flagship, first place. What was the biggest challenge then versus now as you're trying to simultaneously open 2 gyms at the same time?
The biggest challenge up front was almost, I almost can't remember the challenge of it because everything was a challenge.
Yeah.
Right.
We got a program. We got to get a place.
We don't know what the hell we're doing. You know what I mean? And so my wife and I, we've never ran a gym. We had mentors and people that, you know, especially in Tiger Rock and some people that we looked up to that had ran gyms or Tiger Rock locations. And so that we had an idea. But then you're in the day-to-day and yeah, you're not only, for us, we're not only writing programming, but we're writing programming in a set periodization. And this season, we're writing programming not for this season, but for the next 50 years probably. So how do we fit this season in with next season? And so we built it as blocks, right? And so those 6 seasons that we built are like microcycles, and they fit in, and we can plug and play each year of where we want to put different seasons. Yeah. And so that was a challenge because, and it's tough to say it was a challenge because it was just, that was the work that we were doing, right? And so it's really tough to say what's the most challenging because at the end of the day, that's the work we just chose. Every challenge, everything that you overcome is just like, okay, that's another day, another fire that I put out, another thing that I did, and that was my work day. Now time to go home,
Sure.
right? And
Sure.
so that the challenge really becomes the job when you're first starting out. And then you get better at what you do. You have the program set, you have all of these things. And then the challenge now is optimization. And so I kind of act as like the CEO. I'm in the corporate office most of the time or bouncing around different locations, getting a feel for, we have a head coach, which is our manager at every location. We train them, we meet with them every single day. And now our challenge is optimizing them as people, optimizing them and being a mentor to them, but then also on top of that, optimizing the gym. And so each gym has different problems at different times. And for me, I analyze that by the numbers. Where do all the analytics tell, what does that data tell us? What are the KPIs that we're hitting, which just key indicators of the business, right? And where does that tell me we need to work on? Maybe it's acquisition and we're not getting as many leads as we would like. Okay, what do we need to do that? The marketing side of things, all of that. Maybe it's not acquisition. Maybe we're getting hundreds of people in a month, but our closing percentage is down. So now, okay, now I need to talk to the head coach, the salesperson about how can we better train making these, because obviously we're not communicating what we should communicate because historically our percentage has been higher. So now, So what do we need to do? And just really diving into our leadership team is kind of what I do now. And then Amber, as far as the organization, is more of the COO. She's operations. She does the marketing. She, like any idea that the leadership team and I create, she's the one that really plugs it forward and makes sure that the shit actually gets done.
Right.
Because I'm more of an ideas person, and then she's like the step-by-step, make the phone call to get the product done and do this, and this, which is awesome because I think any company needs both. But yeah, and the challenges are different right now. Opening up Ankeny, the challenge is freaking drywall and plumbing. You know what I mean? And so we had issues with our GC, and I'm going to go over it throughout. I'm going to go over it in detail because it was a horrible experience in a podcast that we do when we're done with it finally. But
sure, when the dust is settled, you don't want to jinx anything too much.
I was like, let's get it up and running for people because we're like 5 months behind.
Oh my gosh!
And ultimately, got ditched by a general contractor and took it over myself. And so like that currently is the biggest challenge that we have, is just getting this one to the finish line. So I'm learning city codes and fire protecting tenant walls and demising walls and all of that kind of stuff. what we need for ADA bathrooms. You know what I mean? So I'm like learning all this new stuff right now. But again, that's just part of the job. And so that's what I do now is I'm a full-time GC. You know what I mean?
Your resume grows by the day.
And that's that ultimately being an entrepreneur, I think is part of, that's what it ultimately boils down to is it's like I clean toilets. I'm a GC. I build a wall and, and then I train or coach people, like all of that, and all of that wrapped into one job. And so that to answer that question, what's the hardest challenge now is specific things that we can tackle, specific fire that we can put out. But again, it kind of goes back to the beginning where everything was the challenge. Now it's nitpicky challenges in order to optimize what we're doing. And that's more fun to me because a problem comes up and we solve it, or if there's, hopefully no problems moving forward, then we almost create a problem. What's not the best that it could be? What do we want to? So I kind of ask myself 3 questions on everything that we do, and it's do we want to start something? Do we want to stop something? Do we want to continue something? And so everything that I look at kind of through that lens. And is this something that we need to stop? Is it not? Is it taking too much money? Is it taking too much time? Is it doing something is it getting results in a positive way that we want? Do we want to start something? Are we looking for a solution for something? Let's start something. Or let's continue something. This program or this part of something that we're doing is working great. Let's continue doing that. And so if there's no like immediate fires that need you right now, then you should be pushing your progressing your company forward by asking those questions and talking about different things that will just continue growth. And it doesn't mean that you have to open up new locations. Growth can be in one location, but continue to optimize that location. For us moving forward now, we're looking at new locations, but then also expansion teams. So right now, all 4 locations, we're also doing a 4th location in Elkhorn, Nebraska. So where I grew up, which is kind of cool. It's like a block and a half away from my house when I lived there. But so that's our 4th location. That's going smoothly. So I have a GC and I don't have to worry about that too much. So shout out to him. But I forgot where I was headed with that. But.
So we were talking about the 4th location. The challenge you mentioned was like doing everything, becoming a GC and everything.
Yeah. And so when you get that 4th location, we're getting into expansion teams. So our 4 locations right now are all owned by a variation of our ownership group in the corporate side of things, right? But we have new locations on the horizon that are owned by people outside of our organization. And so that's what we're calling our expansion team, which is basically a franchisee. But we're adjusting things to that isn't necessarily a franchise because there's a lot of things that aren't that don't coincide with our mission statement and being a team inside of like a franchise. So a lot of times it's pitted against each other with the franchisor and the franchisee, and there's a lot of things that they force someone to do because of something, or there's restrictions and different things like that. And we want to make sure that we're playing on the same team with everybody. So as we grow through expansion teams, for example, like we have no initial franchising fee right now. So for the first 10 locations, we're going to have no franchising fee and no fees for the first 6 months. And so what that does is that puts us kind of on a ramp to success where we can kind of continue to help and continue to make sure that gym, when it's crucial to ramp up and you need the cash that you have, if you're paying it to corporate, now you're kind of taking away from your top line, and now that's going to, or your bottom line, that's going to hurt ultimately the success of your business. So we want everybody to be successful as possible. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of different things that are kind of the anti-franchise is kind of as we're growing currently. So we have a couple expansion teams on the horizon that we're excited about and going to be hopefully growing big in not necessarily us, which we'd like to open up another one, but I might let the dust settle a little bit on our own right now. But moving into other people owning Craves is going to be a cool thing starting next year. So,
well, that's really interesting because the typical franchise model for people listening, it's like usually you have a startup fee and then you have an annual royalty you have to pay, and then usually any profit up and above that the franchisee can keep, and that's kind of their incentive, right? Because I know a lot of these, think of like a Snap Fitness, Anytime Fitness, like these, they're thousands of locations. It's like $40,000 a year to keep it open. That's your franchise fee, but then you get the branding, you get business direction, you get these things. So you're saying with your first 10 locations, you're waiving that fee for the initial to at least get interest and kind of get. So that sounds like it's a really competitive advantage. If someone's like, I want to open a gym franchise, but I'm looking at all my options, like that seems pretty appealing.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, it's appealing. It puts us on the same page. But there's a lot of different things that I think a lot of the franchises take away from the value to their franchisee. And one of those is support and helping them be successful. So we have kind of a side vertical for our business is like an agency service agreement too. And so you can pay us to help train your team because a lot of these franchisees are going to agencies and saying, help me run my business. I don't know how to sell. Can you teach me how to sell? I don't know X, Y, or Z, and my franchise doesn't do anything, and I'm paying them all this money basically for their name. And so there's a lot of disagreement that I have about that. The other thing is there's a lot of companies out there that make so much money on an expansion or on the initial franchising fee, which is typically like $50,000 around there, that it makes more sense for them to spend money marketing to sell a new one than it would to help a current one be successful, because they're paying royalties of maybe 10%. And if they're paying 10% of a business that's not running very well, you know, that 10%, that money that's coming from an already established location is less exciting and less profitable for the franchisor than selling a new one, because the new one that gets sold is 50 in the pocket, or a lot of times they're doing half paid out to I can't think of the name of it now, but basically someone that sells a rep that would sell the franchise, right?
Like a broker or something.
There, that's the word I'm looking for.
There you go.
Thanks.
There you
go. Reading my mind. But
I'll be here all day.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, so that's kind of the ultimate thing is I don't want it to be more profitable. I don't want all of my goals to become selling a location and forget about the other locations, because that, you know, we'll make a couple $3,000-$4,000 on $5,000, whatever, on those non-successful locations.
Right.
I'll just go sell another one, and that location paying me, you know, $2,000 is going to take me 25 months to make 50 that I just made over here by selling a new one. So right. Which one am I going to want to do more of?
Well, and you mentioned like the brand alignment. You spent so much time in that second location perfecting everything so there's that consistency of product. And I can see, like you said, where you're just leaving people in the wash, where you sell them roses and sunshine and then you're gone. It's like I can tell you're really trying to take the steps to do that, because as you mentioned, like there's downsides to every industry and there's systems that need to be broken and rebuilt. So then you avoid that, because the real people that lose in this situation, one, in a situation where you sell them the dream and then you tuck and run once they actually get the keys. The problem there would just be, you know, the business owner is really struggling, but then also the members are having a terrible experience. If a gym owner is about to go under, they're not going to be at their best teaching a class. They're not going to be recruiting the best talent to help like coach and personal train and do whatever. So I can see, like you said, you have to really be strategic about it. But as you're starting to build the brand and do all the different things, what's kind of the vision for the next like 5 years? You mentioned it took 5 years to get your second location, and now you're going into year 10, you're going third and fourth location. What's kind of the vision for Crave as you guys start to expand more?
Yeah, I think ultimately growth, and to speak on what you had just said, is the ultimate goal for us is to help as many people as we can continue to train like athletes and live a life that has the athletic mindset and excel in everything that they're doing. And the way that we do that is we not only have new locations and continue to expand on that route, but have successful locations that, like you had said, have the best product, have the best success for their owner. Because now, my level has always been like, okay, when we were initially coaching, it was like I coach my athletes. Now, when I took a step up into like a head coach manager role, I was coaching my coaches. And now taking a step up, now I'm coaching my head coaches to coach the coaches to coach the athletes. And so making sure that system stays in place to have the athletes get the results that they want to live the lives that they want, that's the ultimate goal. And so in doing that, the future in 5 years, I would love to have at least that 10 locations, 15 locations where, but all of them doing the exact same thing, right? And having the success that we've had this far, and being able to coach the athletes in a way that gets them the results and ultimately has them living the life that they want to be. And that only happens with some of this other stuff that we were talking about, right? If we end up just wanting to sell franchises and we sell to a person that doesn't give a shit, and that gym ends up closing in 2 years, they haven't expanded on that mission at all. And so making sure that we have the right expansion team, making sure that we support that expansion team, and make sure that they can in that support and success continue to train their coaches and continue to train their athletes. And so their athletes are the ultimate goal in the entire organization. So
I love it.
think, yeah, and that's the in any of our growth, it's always been, okay, we're anywhere from 3,000 to 3,500 square foot. So we're a boutique gym model. We're a small model, and in that, you can only have so many people in that gym.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so
at least the fire marshal will tell you.
Right. Exactly. Good. Yeah. And so even if we maximize that gym, we're looking at maybe 350 to 400 members. And so we cap it because we only have a certain number of spots in a certain number of training sessions. And so we do all of that on purpose so that you get the training that you deserve. And so in that too, our best gym is only at that, 400 members, right? So how can we help more than 400 people? One, we can help everybody in the community if those 400 people are doing something really cool. Two, let's double it. Let's get 800. Let's continue to build new locations. And so that's the growth, ultimately.
Would you guys do a larger location if a market could support it, where you could have 800 members if you could have 6,000 square feet? Or do you guys prefer to have that tried and true model that's smaller and more intimate?
Yeah, I would recommend a smaller, more intimate one, and then a second one 2.5 miles down the road.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Just because ultimately in a boutique model, your reach is going to be a max of 5 miles, just the convenience factor. People don't want to drive 15 miles to go, take 15 minutes to go to the gym, their neighborhood gym, right? And so in doing that, you almost cannibalize yourself a little bit. I suppose if we got to, and I'm talking Midwest numbers right now, so I suppose if we're in a California, New York type of thing where, here in someone's 5 miles, 50, 60,000 is huge. You might have 50, 60,000 on one block in like New York, right? And so now you go 5 miles and you have, I don't even know the numbers. I haven't looked at them, but it's a crazy amount, right? And so inside of that, you might have a bigger footprint, but as far as like Midwest numbers around here, 99% of people aren't driving more than 5 miles to go to a location. So as we expand, starting with the heart of the Midwest, that's kind of in mind when I say open up another one, and then you can be just as profitable as a double one, with just as much reach, just as many athletes that you can help, more community mileage that you can cover, and continue to be living the mission and helping those athletes. So
that's really cool. And I think about like any other super successful franchise, like McDonald's or some of these other ones, it's like they won't build a super large McDonald's. They'll just have like 5
Right.
in a really close area. Because like you said, proximity and location is everything for
Exactly.
these people.
Yep. And I use that model all the time when I'm talking to my leadership team. Is I'm like, you have to be McDonald's. You have when someone comes in Waukee location or Ankeny location or West Des Moines location, they need to know that product is the exact same, just like McDonald's always preach. I don't know if you watched that documentary.
I just watched the Founder movie with Ray Kroc. Yeah. And it's like you go to the Dallas-Fort Worth airport or you go to like BFE, Nebraska, like nowhere, like you're getting the same cheeseburger.
You got to have the same cheeseburger. Yep.
That's wild.
That's the same thing. You know, we got to have the same cheeseburger of fitness. You have to have the same experience. You have to have the same level of energy. You have to have the same thing. And so a lot of designing the product for us was how can I optimize the product and have an operator, maybe a coach that's brand new, who doesn't know as much or have as much experience than someone 10 years from now. How can I create tools for them to coach? How can I create trainings for them to go through? And how can I create things to take stuff off of their plate so that they can truly be the coaches that are the same every location, that doesn't affect the session. You know, a lot of times I feel like you get gyms that have like people start picking coaches. Like I really want 4 o'clock class, but I'm not going to go to class at 4 o'clock because so-and-so's coaching and I only like so-and-so. And so if that's the case, then the product's wrong. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so whether that's if they're programming their own session, then that coach shouldn't be programming that session if they're if the quality goes down.
Well, that's a huge thing. My wife goes to a yoga studio, and same thing. She'll cherry pick instructors. Well, I only like this instructor, and this one I don't really like, so then I'm not going to go. And I'm like, so you're going to skip your workout today because you don't prefer the instructor? Like, yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? You know, like, come on. Like,
but it's not her fault ultimately. That's the yoga studio's fault. Right. You know what I mean? And ultimately, if they had at least, I mean, there's going to be variances, right? But at least have something that is that we have control factors. Like we have screens with the clock on them. So the pace is always the same. No matter what, the whistle blows at this time for every single location. Literally, like, it's kind of cool to think about. If I'm in Waukee in West Des Moines and I'm on the phone with someone in West Des Moines, the whistle's going off at the same time. Yeah, like that stuff is hitting at the same time. And so all of that kind of stuff I'm trying to control so that you don't have a slow-paced coach doing something different than a fast-paced coach over here. And so those are some of the variables that you can take out of the coach's hands so that they can coach and ultimately be looking at form, be looking at motivation, be looking at instruction, right? Those are kind of the 3 things that we want our coaches to be able to do: instruct, modify, or work on form, and then motivate.
Sure.
You know.
Well, and in terms of like you're educating these, like when you open a new location like the one in Nebraska, when you guys hire on the head coach and get all the coaches and everybody's starting to come in, what's that process look like to onboard all the staff to get them up to speed with your guys' process? Do you guys have like a Crave University or something that you teach, or do you go in and teach it like a week long to here's the business in a box for 7 days? Like, how do you guys do that?
Yeah, so we call it Crave University.
Oh, cool.
For the head coaches, right? I love it. You're right on. So Crave University is for a head coach or an expansion team owner. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. But that is basically a 5-day crash course at the corporate office, learning all the back end stuff on location at our Waukee location, getting the shadowing of what not only the head coach does, but what the coaches do, and getting the whole thing. So that's the head coach. We have 3 levels of certification internally. And so we have just the coaching cert, level 1. All of our coaches are level 1 certified, and they have to just have that in order to coach by themselves.
Right.
And so that's number 1. Number 2 is a nutrition certification. We have a nutrition. We have a dietitian on staff, so we have nutrition certification for anyone that doesn't have any prescriptable needs of nutrition, and if they do have any previous illnesses, any aversions to food, any actual allergies or anything, they'll go to our dietitian.
Oh, cool.
But somebody that just wants to accelerate their goal and work on nutrition, we have a nutrition cert for all of our coaches. And then level 3 is the head coach, management, marketing. The whole system is played into place there, sales.
Sure.
And so that's kind of the structure in which we do. We have an onboarding process that's basically 21 days for a coach to be completely certified. If they want to be nutrition certified, they can. And so that 21-day process for any of our coaches is shadowing, being shadowed, passing an applied exam while coaching, and then passing an online certification of knowledge in both exercise science and then brand awareness and brand knowledge. So those all certified get you on the field per se to coach, and then our head coaches go to Crave University and get all 3 of those within that 5 days. And that goes into how to train your coaches, how to recognize, is a session good or does it need improvement here, and here, you know? And so all of those kind of come with the head coaching role.
That's super cool. Yeah, and I want to be cognizant of your time. I've got one bigger question that I wanted to ask right before the end here. If somebody's listening that's 20-something entrepreneur, they have an idea for a brick and mortar physical business. It's a little bit different with what you do than someone wholesaling things on Amazon or something like that.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for someone who's a 20-something that wants to open a brick and mortar business in the current age? Like, what would be some advice for somebody like that?
Yeah. First, find Chris Tomlinson. Shout out to him. He is a commercial realtor for us.
Okay. What company is he with?
He has his own company. I can't think of. I feel bad not having it off the top of my head. He used to work for someone and then he opened his own business. Okay. So I'm not sure on his new business, but we'll have it in the show notes. I'll look it up.
Yep, I'll put it in later.
Yeah, but the get a good commercial guy, right? So the other thing, he works with Tiger Rock Martial Arts nationwide, and so like as we expand, he'll be able to have a representative with him in Omaha. So he hooked us up with the Omaha guy. The reason I say get that for a brick and mortar is there's so much that goes into a lease that can make your business model great. And there's so much that can be overlooked that can just crush a business. For example, if you have responsibility for the AC unit and you're in your first 4 months of business and the AC craps out on you, that's, $5,000 that maybe you don't have.
Yep. And
that can crush a business up front, right? And so just things to look for in a lease that we don't do on a daily basis typically. Those guys do it on a daily basis. So find a good commercial guy. And then find a general contractor that if you're going to do a big build out, like ours is easy. So ours is a box and then I fill that box. So the problem is if you get a guy that moves to Arizona on you, you don't have the person to build that box, and you end up building that box yourself. And so, so find someone that builds, that you can rely on and work with those subs and different things, and give yourself, we do a bunch of training with our head coaches and our sales team on pre-sales. So pre-selling is huge. You can start making money and start laying the foundation for your business prior to opening the doors.
That's huge.
For us, we didn't pre-sell anything in our second location just because we hadn't really put the thought out. And so then we started pre-sales with these locations, and we're going to start in like month 8 of our progression in building the business as far as numbers go and members and all that kind of stuff. So if you can start 8 months ahead, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Because again, that first ramp, like we talked about when we were talking about our expansion teams, that first runway of 2 years is crucial to your business, to getting to break even, getting to profitable, and being able to sustain that business. Because I don't know the stat, but a lot of businesses go out of business. And so having that team, I think, built for you, or finding that team when you're getting into the brick and mortar stuff is huge. Do your research, find as much, like you should continue to be, any entrepreneur, I think, continue to be learning. And like I'm learning to be a GC, and I didn't think 12 years in I'd be worried about that, right? But that in my career, that's just something that now I'm continuing to learn. Don't be afraid to wear a bunch of hats, especially when you start, because you're going to be, the Amazon thing, you're not mopping floors and cleaning toilets. If you're in your own gym or any brick and mortar, you're going to be cleaning toilets, taking out the trash, mopping floors, and you have to do that because your clients or whoever you're servicing, they expect something, they deserve something clean. If you're going to be a good business owner, they deserve all that stuff. And typically when you're starting, you're not paying someone to clean, you're not paying people to do all this stuff. So you're going to be, a makeshift handyman. You're going to be a cleaning person. You're going to do whatever on top of whatever business you're actually running.
Right.
And those are things that if you're running an online business, typically you're not going to be worried about, So those are couple little tips, I guess, but build your team and find reliable team, because if you don't, it makes it a hell of a lot harder if you have to do more on your own than what you should be when you're in a spot like we're in right now, and it takes away from the other part of the business, right? So if you can find someone that knows commercial leases and knows all that stuff, you can find someone that is a GC that knows how to sub out all the work, and you can get that done in half the time. If you know people that are doing those things and you can invest in them, it's an investment worth your time, because me as a GC, I'm going to take 10 times longer getting a project done than someone that knows what he's doing, right? So that's going to be a huge part of initially starting up.
Sure. No, I love that advice. And I appreciate you just for doing what you do. And I always had a huge draw to the fitness industry. So my way to be involved in it was to make videos for it, but you're actually doing the dang thing and helping people get fit. So I appreciate you doing that.
And we got to get you in to do some videos. We'll always have some video work. We're looking to do some new marketing material and some different stuff that we'll definitely have to talk about off air for sure.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, you mentioned you have a podcast. So yes. Plug the podcast. Where can people learn about Crave if they're in the Des Moines Metro, or if they're in Omaha, where can they come in for a workout?
Yeah. So we have soon to be 4 locations. We have our West Des Moines on 50th and EP True. We have our Waukee location just right off of Alice's Road. Our Ankeny location is 18th and Ankeny Boulevard, North Ankeny Boulevard. And then in Elkhorn, we're on 204th Street, the corner of Pacific and 204th. And so all of those locations will be available here, hopefully within the month. But West Des Moines and Waukee, you can try those right now and even get a taste for what it's going to be if you're in Ankeny or Elkhorn. Check us out it's called the Gym Closet on YouTube, Krave Gym. We throw all of our content onto YouTube at Krave Gym, and then at Krave Gym on all the social medias and stuff to keep up. Yeah, the Gym Closet was originally started in a gym closet, and so that's where the name came from. We've since expanded to a studio, so it's a little more fun now, but a little less cramped now. So.
Yeah, I should have named my show the Waxing Room, because this used to be a wax room when this was a hair salon. So
I love it. I love it. That'd be perfect.
Yeah. So, well, thanks again, man, for coming on. I appreciate just the conversation, and I hope people got a lot of value from everything we're talking about. You're a super interesting dude, and appreciate you giving us the time. So,
thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, you've listened to another episode of the Rhymes with Odd podcast. If you've made it this far in the show, make sure to give us a 5-star review if you're listening on iTunes, or subscribe on Spotify or YouTube. My name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.